Hello, everyone, and welcome to another riveting edition of Under the Floorboards, where we live with the creatures that go bump in the night. I'm your host, John, joined not this week by my co-host, Eric, but two equivocally beautiful guests this week. We have writer-director Paul Brooks. Give it up, everybody.
Hello, good evening, good morning, whatever time it is.
Yeah, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. But also joined today by writer, actor, Sierra Renfro. Am I saying that right? Like, it feels like it's supposed to be phonetic, but I don't know. After the Brazilian names I had to say last week, I'm so afraid that I'm just going to offend somebody.
Are you
I got
talking about
it.
the last name?
Yeah.
Or oh yeah, I say Ren like Renaissance fair and Fro like Afro, and that seems to help people understand that it's very simple.
Solid. Well, welcome to the show, guys. Thank you for being on this week. And really excited to talk about y'all's new film, Hunting for the Hag, which is currently available on Amazon as well as, was it Voodoo, correct?
Yeah, it used to be Voodoo. They changed their name to Fandango at Home for some unknown reason, as if that rolls off the tongue better.
Oh man. Well, obviously, getting into it, I'd love to know about, so I know in this project specifically, you guys were writing together on this, and I've seen some of your interviews. I know, Sierra, you're kind of tired of seeing dumbass scripts getting sent out to you. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So what was kind of the antithesis of this team up? Sierra, we'll start with you.
Um, in the sense of like me and Paul's friendship, or just hunting for the hag?
Or all of the above. What brought you two together for this project ultimately?
Okay, gotcha. Well, Paul and I met 10 years ago in Los Angeles. We didn't know each other. We saw each other at a screening at the Egyptian Theater. We were both awkward. Then we became friends because we had no one to talk to, and we kept our friendship going. Fast forward to COVID. I think both of us were kind of frustrated and fed up with just not being able to do anything creatively, and we felt really stuck. So Paul took it upon himself to create the concept of Hunting for the Hag, and he came to me and was like, hey, we can film it this year in the summer, which was like only a couple months away, but I need help writing it because we have to do it like fast. So he asked me if I wanted to co-write with him, and I was like, yeah, hell yeah. I haven't had a opportunity to write a feature film before, so it'd only been shorts. So I was really excited to take that step. And yeah, that's basically the story. Do you want to add anything to it, Paul?
No, not really. We had written a few things prior to that. We had taken a stab at some short films, and we already knew that we uh, enjoyed collaborating together and that we wanted to do something bigger. And so, we had a little bit of a history working with each other, and wanted to make sure that we could get something off the ground, because we tried to write a short film, and I just told you yesterday that somebody took the title, so we can't do that one anymore.
Yeah, we wrote that one at Fry's in Burbank.
Hmm.
And that
Okay.
those little cars that had
Yeah.
the tools.
I'm
Where
a
do
little
you
sad about that, but I mean, it was bound to happen eventually, so not a big deal.
You just
yeah.
got to steal someone else's one word that they use for their short film.
Well, that's why I'm a very big proponent of coming up with very specific titles, because there's a pretty small chance that somebody else is going to have a Hunting for the Hag out there. And so if you're a writer watching this or listening to this right now, I'm always a big proponent of giving your film or your project a title that isn't going to be easy to steal, to cut, because there's just so much stuff out there these days.
What was the hurry on this film? Because now I'm curious.
It
Thanks.
was, yeah, I mean, like, we just didn't want to lose another summer. And
Uh,
once COVID started to calm down to the point where, if you remember, there was a while where people just didn't feel comfortable meeting up to to do stuff, it was a lot more difficult. And we really got to that point where we thought that we would be able to safely put a movie together. And it's like, all right, well, if we're going to do it, we got to go now, to make sure that we sort of hit the filming window. Because obviously here in the Midwest, once you get past a certain point, it's going to start to get too cold and you can't shoot anymore. So we're trying to make sure that we shot in August, September at the very latest.
So does that make the pool a non-negotiable for this film?
The swimming pool in the movie.
Yeah.
So
Like I could
so
feel like on the scouting part of the scouting location stuff, I was just like, he was looking for that pool the whole time.
well, the whole movie was built around that location because that's a family member's location, and I had been told if you ever want to shoot something here, it's all yours. You can come out here and do whatever you want with it. So we got really lucky in that sense that we had that location available to us, and we were able to scout it and take pictures and take video and then write the screenplay around the location, knowing exactly where we were going to be the entire time.
I actually loved that process too, because I feel like when you're writing a script, you're constantly trying to, keep budget in mind, and you're not really sure what kind of locations you can get because typically that comes a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing exactly where everything was going to be just like took a lot of like the guessing and like I don't know, just it made it a lot easier for me to just focus in.
You can get more specific with it, like the sign in the back bedroom where you're back there and there's the sign that says today is going to be a great day. That's in the script, because we knew that we would be able to have that room back there. So yeah, it does help the process. It takes out a lot of the guesswork.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like you said, it's a gorgeous location too. Like I feel like
Yeah, I love that place.
you go out to the tree at some point in the film and like it was just this magnificent like haunted tree. Like it felt like there's a film that came out earlier this year called Older Gods that was had that same like it felt like y'all just transplanted that tree from England and just brought it over here. Like I could imagine like it just raining nooses and shit from the tree. The aesthetic was awesome out there. I really enjoyed that part of it.
Thank
Um,
you.
Now, when you guys started writing this, did you kind of like have in mind that y'all were going to do a hybrid between found footage and like regular cinema in this?
That was definitely a question as we were writing it. I kind of poked around some of my trusted writer friends and I said, we're thinking about doing this. I don't know how it would go over. And anytime I brought it up with people, it was always, oh yeah, do it, because to me, that's just more interesting than not doing it. So it was a question mark for a second, but pretty much anyone we asked about it said, oh yeah, definitely go for it.
So with myself watching horror movies in general, and like I know that both of you are big fans of horror as well, I'm always kind of looking for Easter eggs in really any given movie. And I wanted to ask you, and I feel like I know the answer to this question because of the shirt that you're wearing right now. But was that Night of the Living Dead on in the background behind Beth?
Yes. Yeah, every one of my movies, and this is kind of a lame cliche that directors like to do sometimes. Every short film that I've made, this is my first feature, but every film that I've made thus far has a little Night of the Living Dead Easter egg in there, and just kind of tucked away, not super noticeable or anything, but just a little homage to George in there.
Is that like one of your biggest influences?
100% number one influence, George's films, George's personality. If you talk to anyone who worked with George on any of his films, they'll tell you the same thing about, you wanted to do anything for him because he was just such a likable director, and just person. And I do everything that I can to emulate that on set of just, trying to make sure that people have a fun time making the movie.
Absolutely. And I think Sierra can attest for that. if you want to, like if you feel under the gun, like if you don't want to say anything in front of Paul, you can just message me later. It's fine.
She
Yeah,
had a
we
terrible
had
time.
so much fun. I'm just kidding. No, it really was like one of the best experiences I've ever had. It felt like summer camp, especially because of the weather. Just really hot, muggy, everybody's sweaty. Everybody's just trekking through like weird parts of the forest and I
Spiders.
yeah, the wrangling spider webs and spiders. I think when we're walking through the tall grass to get to the tree at one point in the night,
Mm.
like there was some like critter like in the grass with us. Do you remember that, Paul?
Yeah, I
And
think we have some
everybody
behind the
freaked out.
scenes of it. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody freaked out because it like made like a little like
The
noise,
Russell.
but
Yeah.
we had nowhere to run really because we were in a straight line. So everybody was kind of freaking out. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was tiring. We definitely pushed ourselves a lot and tried to squeeze in a lot in a very short amount of time, but it made me feel even more proud of us after it was done for being able to do what we did in that amount of time.
Hmm.
But Paul and I have made the vow that we won't we don't need to experience it like we did.
Nope. Nope. That's a one and done.
Yeah, but it was great. Everybody got along amazing. Zero drama, zero weirdness. Everybody was really good friends, just positive, lovely people. So,
You gotta
yeah.
love that. Um,
Yeah.
s- so, and it's and to kind of sum up the plot, you have three girls that are going on, and if I'm not mistaken, it's for her thesis in film school, correct?
Yeah, I feel like we kind of meant to get that point across a little bit more that Tara is in college. You
Hmm.
kind of see her dorm towards the beginning of the film, but that's essentially what it's supposed to be. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that, I mean, I think it's a heavy enough inference,
Hmm.
especially like I watched Dread recently, an Anthony de Blasi film that I love. And I think that same thing is really kind of inferred in that too. It's like if you see a kid in film school
Right.
and they are really trying to get some shit done, and it's supposed to be like their magnum opus that like six people are going to see in their film class, like it's typically what it is.
Right.
But what I really enjoyed about this film, specifically, was what was kind of unique to the found footage aspect of it was it didn't look like shit. And the reason for that, well, she's in film school, and you answered the question immediately. She's using a nice camera, because you
Right.
have you have that shot in the car where the phone like turns around to look at her, and I was like, damn, that's oh right, she's literally leaving from film school, of course she's shooting this on a nice ass camera.
That, John, actually was so much more complicated than anyone would realize. That was a if you're talking about what I think you're talking about, where
Mhm.
you see Candy in the camera holding the
Yeah,
camera.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was actually a pickup shot, and that was a pain in the ass because that we realized. I know that you want to talk about Alyssa a little bit, or the character of
Mhm.
Alyssa, and um, we had a note that it would be nice to see Alyssa earlier in the film, and so we added a scene after principal, shooting was done. We added that scene, and so Sierra was in LA with a camera, shooting that on, on that camera.
Her
Nora,
face is priceless.
It
who
was
plays
difficult.
Alyssa, was in Normal, my hometown. I was shooting that, and then in the shot of Sierra holding the phone, that's actually my friend Alyssa, not Alyssa in the movie, but a different actual girl named Alyssa holding the phone and doubling as Sierra's hand. So we
Yeah,
stitched that
those were
whole thing
plans.
together. It was a
It,
mess.
it was like a Frankenstein scene, and I think the thing that was most difficult for me was we could kind of fake like the car not being the same car because we didn't have
Oh,
the
we
car.
had to redo that too. I forgot
It
about
was
that.
it was
God.
Seth's car, and we had to film inside the car, but Seth lives in Chicago. So we're like, how do we get this very specific looking back seat And luckily no one's called us out on it so far. I guess I just called myself out on it, but whatever.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Um,
Not the
and
continuity error.
yeah, and the biggest pain in the ass, which is so funny, is we're supposed to be at the gas station, and in the gas station that we actually filmed at, it's flat land everywhere. There's nothing. So like you can only see blue sky behind Beth in the car. But in LA, there's shit everywhere obstructing your view. So my biggest challenge was trying to find a place to put this car where we could only see blue sky, no palm trees and shit like that behind her. So I found it at the top of the Topanga Mall, which is like one of the biggest malls. It's incredibly north and at the very, very top of the parking structure, all the way in the back. And we had to like film it kind of carefully because people are really weird about permits and securities everywhere. So we had to act like we are just like hanging out like sometimes because it'd be like security's coming, and then and yeah, so but we did it. It
And
worked.
no one's ever noticed.
No one's ever noticed, but now they might. But
I would
Yeah.
say
And that's okay.
it looks clean as fuck. So it's like I didn't realize that it took 3 states to make one car cut together. So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
yeah.
so
Well,
is absolutely. And as someone who has just edited their first short film, that sounds like a fucking nightmare. That makes me want to throw up. Like that's like
Yeah.
one of those things where I'm like, we'll just leave it out. Fuck it. I don't care anymore. Like
We thought about it, but what happened was it was so hot when we were shooting in Illinois. It was literally 102, 103 degrees, humidity off the chart, and someone at some point had gotten a thumbprint on the lens, and we couldn't tell when we were doing it, and we got the footage back and we're like, there's no way we can put this in the movie. So it was one of those things where it's like we need the information in the scene. We can't cut it out. We have to figure out a way to redo it. So I hear what you're saying. It can be a pain in the butt sometimes, but you do what you got to do.
yeah, 100%. Like I said, I think it looks clean.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So on this journey, the girls make it to the house, the Airbnb that they're going to be staying in while they are on hunting for the hag, and there's a really cool scene where you're establishing the lore of the hag. And Sierra, I'd love for you to tell everybody the story of the hag and why they're out here hunting this person to begin with.
Yeah, I think we kept it a little bit ominous. We definitely have the backstory of Ollie Yarger, who, was tried for being a witch in this town. Classic American, witch story. And Beth is telling some of the different things that the locals have said that, the spirit of Ollie Yarger's done, like sitting on someone's chest while they're sleeping, and then I make that sexual joke shortly after. Um, but yeah, we don't know much about Ollie Yarger besides what Beth has said. We've kept it kind of a little bit more open-ended. That's why when we're in the forest looking around, we're like, is she a ghost? Is this an evil spirit? Is this an actual hag? So yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Paul, because I know you did a lot of the building of the background of the hag.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kept it fairly vague on purpose, that you sort of sprinkle in some backstory, and it's a lot of hearsay. It's a lot of, well, my sister swears that she saw it at some point. And, it's sort of like we didn't want to lock ourselves into one particular mythology in case another movie happens down the road. And then a lot of what they talk about, I don't want to get too deep into spoiler territory, but there's a lot of stuff that ends up kind of not being true, So just like a Bigfoot or just like a Loch Ness monster or anything like that, there's a lot of stuff that you hear and you can't always believe 100% of it or 0% of it.
Yeah. I think what's really cool though is how the book is directly correlated to the hag,
Mm-hmm.
and how that spell basically, unlocks.
God, spoilers.
Oh, oops. without giving, I guess, I mean, like page 44 is a big thing, and I will say I'm wearing a necklace that has angel numbers of 444. You see
Look
that?
at that. Holy
Yeah,
cow.
it's my little homage to Hunting for the Hag.
Cool.
Yeah.
So part of the reason I wanted to bring the lore up, and this is probably a question that both of you will tell me to go fuck myself on, and that's fine.
Probably.
Yeah, and I'm trying to give you that power here. So one of the things that I wanted to bring up the lore is it was very reminiscent of why I loved the Nightmare on Elm Street original story for Freddy Krueger was all we have to go on is what the parents are saying, much like you're talking about in this story, where we even find some of the stuff to be not true. And I think that a lot of it kind of cycled around in that film, for me at least, was did he do it? Is he back because he's seeking revenge because he was accused of something that he didn't do? He did that shit, but but regardless, there was always that kind of back lore to it. So I did want to ask if you had in mind when you were writing this story, did she kill that kid?
What do you think, Sierra?
I I love the idea of this being like an actual witch back in like the day, and like they were right to like try and kill her because maybe she was doing some shit, like just like the witch, when
Mm-hmm.
she steals the baby and stuff like that. I think it's way more fun and cool to go like the darker route. And um yeah, I'd like to think that she did kill the kid. Maybe was trying to use some of the body parts. I think in The Witch, they say something about like the reason why they kill the kid or the baby is because there's an actual, like historically, like legend that witches use a certain part of like babies or little kids to create flying bomb or something, which basically gives them the like ability to fly, like on their brooms.
I'm
So
pretty
like
sure
You're
little
it was
talking
things
about
like,
foreskin. Like, as gross as that is, I'm like
oh,
80%
was it
sure it was
foreskin?
foreskin. Yeah.
Oh, oh shit.
awesome.
That's why they're stealing the baby boys.
It's
That's that
well,
scene was so
um,
fucking gross too.
yeah, yeah. I'm not saying I like that. I'm just saying I like that. I'm just oh god. I'm just saying I like the like connection to that. That's an actual thing in history. Like they pulled that from like books that's like a legend that they do. Um
Totally.
Anything that we can pull like real like, witchcraft from hundreds of years ago into it, I think is more fun. But I don't know. What do you think, Paul? Did
It's
she
it's really interesting because I have a totally different answer. I would say, John, go fuck yourself. No, I'm kidding.
It's
Um,
powerful. It's powerful on this show.
that you gave me the power to do that, right? I didn't.
Yeah,
I'm
100%.
not out of line. Say okay.
Everyone on
Um,
this show can do that at any point in time.
no, I honestly like it's from my perspective, it's pretty open ended. I've talked with Nathan, who played Ali Yarger in the film. I know that he has some ideas about that, sort of about the backstory, and in sort of fantasy land, if we uh ever got to do a part 5 for Hunting for the Hag where you get to see an origin story, I'm sure there would be plenty of that included. But to be honest, right now, we kind of did what we needed to in order to get this one out the door and not worry too much. We'll deal with that, down the road if it ever happens.
Yeah, foreskin will be in part 2. I got you.
Definitely.
will make
It'll
sure?
just be called Foreskin Hunting for the Hag
Hunting
Origins.
for the foreskin. Ollie Yarger's mission to find. Okay, I'm done.
And we'll make it part 4 so that we can call it Foreskin.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Shit.
Again,
There
Paul
you
with the
go.
titles. Yeah.
I'm telling you,
Very
folks, it's
specific
important.
titles. Very
It's
specific
important.
titles.
If there's any investors listening and that
Yeah.
sounds really intriguing.
If there are any investors listening, I will say because I definitely don't want to do spoilers for this, but the way that y'all set up for a Hunting for the Hag 2, I was fucking in love with. I
Oh,
was
thank
fucking
you.
I was ready for like people start kicking in doors, like looking for the hag and shit. Like
I
the
love that. Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
like
and we get some questions about that, at screenings and whatnot, if it's on the way and things like that. So it's nice to hear that usually people responded pretty well to the ending.
mhm.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, there's a sense that you kind of get it at the beginning of the film, but like
Hmm.
you guys really laid into it at the end, and I was like, God, this would be so much fun. Like, I just imagine like giant firefights with guns and like all of this crazy shit.
And that's a reason that, we certainly don't have it on the dock right now, because if we ever did do a sequel, there would have to be substantially more money involved. And,
Mhm.
we need to get those investors who are watching right now on the phone to see if we can make it happen.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I don't. I think they are. I don't.
We'll see.
I like to think they are. Uh, So going back to really kind of summoning the hags here, like you were talking about, like y'all are using the power of three, like just standing and chanting and like getting the summoning for Ali Yarger. And I gotta ask you, have you ever fucked with a Ouija board? Like you kind of give off that energy like you fucked with a Ouija board before.
You know, it's so funny. I'm not trying to plug our other show, Ghost
That's
Girls.
why I'm laughing.
But this is the perfect segue. Um, uh, without giving spoilers, because I know you're watching Ghost Girls this weekend, a Ouija board may or may not appear in the first episode. Whether or not I use it is, I'll just tell you, I end up not using it, but but
Well, I mean, but that actually factors in, like, so John, we have this show called Ghost Girls, and it's the first episode is on Tubi if anybody wants to watch it. And one of the scenes that Sierra did was supposed to be with a Ouija board, and
I bitched
she
out.
sits, yeah, she sat down and could not
Bitched
do it.
out. The vibes were off in that room. I was like, yeah, what they call that room? Like the Charlie Chaplin room or something, because he like stayed
No,
there.
we were in the Harry Houdini room.
Oh, Harry, even scarier. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Harry Houdini's ghost is gonna fucking do some magic trick and scare me. Um, yeah, I don't know that the entire time at that hotel, I felt like something was constantly behind me, which I didn't necessarily feel at other locations. So that one was creepy. I'm not against using a Ouija board. I think I've grown a lot of balls since then. I think maybe we have to include it on our next Ghost Girls episode that we film, Paul. Just for
Maybe, but I mean, like the Ouija board actually that we're talking about is right over here. It's right in front of me. And I'm a little bit more of a skeptic, and I've never gotten any bad feeling from it or anything like that. Maybe it depends on where you're using it, but
yeah.
I've used it myself and haven't had anything happen. So I think the jury's still out on whether or not my Ouija board actually does anything or not.
You just got to remember to say goodbye every time. Is
Yep,
really
that's
all
the
it
key.
is.
I just said goodbye before I even used it. So
Yeah, you pieced out.
yeah, yeah, you guys have fun.
And
So
you
if
know
anybody
what?
wants to check that out, you can watch Sierra get totally freaked out on the first episode of Ghost Girls.
Yeah, you should be a little bitch. Go watch it.
And you know, it's funny because like I am as atheist as the day is long, and I don't fuck with Ouija boards either.
Mm,
I don't
It's
know.
it's not
okay.
There's
for everybody.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's something about it that feels evil, like
Hmm.
inherently.
I think because we all like horror movies too, it doesn't matter what our religious beliefs are. We just know that nothing ever good usually comes from it when it does work. So it's like, do you want to risk it? You know? But
Yeah.
Yeah. I was watching a film recently where they were snorting coke off the Ouija board, and I was just like, you know what? Maybe it's not as bad, or it's about to be real fucking bad.
I didn't know that's how you used it. Maybe we can try it again.
Well, because now you have these coked out spirits in your fucking house. Like, that sounds horrible.
Oh, that's funny. It makes the spirits all
Yeah.
coked out. That's funny.
Um. But yeah. Sorry, you just kind of gave off that energy. I guess I was right, but
Yep, you were.
so there's something I kind of want to talk to Sarah about as well with Paul. I watched one of y'all's interviews where you're talking about kind of the way to the tree, y'all were doing like kind of some pickup found footage feels with all of the girls on the way to the tree. And it sounded like you were kind of just like, I want this to feel organic. I want you guys to just take the camera and go out there and see what you find. Which was really cool because it kind of fucks up this next question, because I guess it was just organically happening in the woods, but I wanted to know how much you guys paid those spiders to fuck.
Sierra,
were
how
just
much did you pay them? You were out there.
$5. 5 bucks for food. No,
That's an infinite amount.
the amount of bugs, and like the movie doesn't do just how fucked up those woods are with bugs justice. Like, yes, they're featured in it, but like before we even started filming, we were at base camp. Like, there was benches and a little dome over it at this like park. You couldn't stand still for more than 3 seconds, or else one of the many bugs on the sidewalk that's just like running from side to side would like crawl up your leg. It was like bug freeway on the cement. You had to constantly look where you're stepping, and they didn't give a fuck if you were standing there. They just crawl right up you and just keep walking. And it was freaky. There was a moment when Paul was giving us directions like in the woods, and he had like a flashlight. He's just talking, and this giant, like, I don't know what it was. It looked like a spider, it looked like a centipede. It was just like casually crawling up his shoulder. Like, I don't know if it was me or somebody else, but we just like slapped it off you, and he's like, do I want to know what that was? We're like, no.
Yeah, you just keep going. You try.
Yeah. Oh no, Paul froze.
I was gonna say he looks like he's having a great time on the show. That's all I can really ask for.
We'll just keep talking.
But I'd love to hear a little bit more, Sierra, about just a little bit about what it was like, especially being a writer on this when you're in the woods. So I feel like you kind of have a leg up. I know, Paul, you gave a lot of notes of, like you said, like, here's the beats that y'all kind of need on the way to the tree. But like, again, Sierra, I feel like you had an upper hand being a writer as this is like organically happening. So what was that like? Was that kind of feeling like the director a little bit in there, or what was that like?
Yeah, it was a little difficult, to be honest, because I'm in an environment I don't know. It's pitch black, there's bugs everywhere. Paul can't go with us, so I'm trying to help keep the pace and, you know, just direct like everybody to do what he wants. But it was really hard sometimes for everybody to continue staying in character, because there was moments of genuine like, oh my god, what is that? So we tried as much as possible to use that to our advantage. Like, we talked about it, like, let's just try and stay in character, and like when like something actually freaks us out, we'll just use that as our characters. But as far as like the script went, there wasn't a whole lot we had as far as dialogue in those moments. It was kind of like the car scene where there's a lot of improv, and we just had to get to those beats in those moments. But I had a lot of fun because I was like drunk candy at that point, so it was just fun to kind of like fuck around and like do some stupid shit. But and
They're
that's
fucking.
fun. That's fun, and like the audiences like really like liked certain parts of that. Like at one point there's a bunch of bugs right here. They were really in there, and I was like, they like my titties or something. That's me actually saying it about the bugs because they were actually in my boobs, but but it worked for the it worked for Candy too. Um so yeah, it was hard to go from like those moments and try and get serious though, because at that point we're trying to build a suspense up into getting to the tree. But anyways, trying to keep us on track to building a consistent vibe towards, freaked out, anxious about the tree was difficult, because whenever you're anxious about real things, people like to laugh to try and ease their nerves.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question. It was a little bit of a mess, but
No,
we got
totally.
there.
So we get to the tree, and as I was telling y'all earlier, this is like this is always one of my favorite kills, and I feel like they happen in a lot of films, and to me it's comic relief, and I don't know what that says about me, but we meet a character, Alyssa, that was supposed to be going with them, and she runs out. She's dressed as the hag, right? And she's scaring everybody. And then there's kind of like this fucking meltdown from Tara, because it's like, you know, all of your friends think this is a fucking joke. And she's kind of having that part of her character arc coming through. And, you know, and this is like notably also where I really like Candy, and because she's like the character that's like, we were just trying to do something fucking nice for you. That was awesome. Like, what is your fucking problem right now? Because it feels
Yeah.
like no one believes that the hag is real at this point. And Alyssa is who did she have on the ground? I can't remember off the top of my head. When they were
I think it was Candy.
was it
It was
Candy?
me
Okay.
in the
So
bucket grass, yeah.
well, so you know, she's like doing the hag thing, and she's like in the camera and shit, and then just like slapstick bam, like fucking brain matter everywhere. And it's just like, you know, some redneck standing behind them. And that was like one of my favorite kills just in general this year, because there was something about like just the way she acted when it happened was incredible. I'd actually really love to know what that editing process was like.
Um, it was fairly easy in terms of, well, no, I take that back. It was brutal. Um,
I was to say you're
the
a fucking liar.
the editing process was fine. The shooting process was more difficult because we actually we were a little bit behind schedule, and we went out and shot that scene at the end of one of the nights, and everyone was so exhausted that people just literally could not get through it. Nobody could remember their lines. People just had hit their wall. And
Mhm.
as a director, you have to really make sure that when that's happening, you do the right thing and call it. So we called it, and then we came back. We worked it into the schedule, I think 2 nights later, and came back, and it was so much easier to do and so much more fun to do. The only challenge with that then is stitching it together in the edit so that it doesn't feel like it was shot on 2 different nights, and so that was a little bit of a challenge there. But you know, in terms of everybody knowing what they're supposed to be doing and shooting it and everything, all of that was pretty easy because it's found footage. And you know, a lot of it looks chaotic, and sometimes like people's heads aren't in the frame, and it's like, well, that's how it would really go if something like this was happening. So just did the best I could to sort of give it that vibe of like, yeah, we're still rolling on this, but we kind of almost don't realize it, you know, because there's other shit going on right now.
Or like from my perspective or the girls' perspectives, I think it's like you're always taught when you're growing up to always try and get evidence so people believe you of things.
Mm,
Like, oh, if you're in a car with someone you don't know and you feel sketched out, like leave a hair in there so in case they murder you, they'll know that, you know, they did it.
wow.
Like that's like very normal for like a girl's growing up experience. And so I
That
think
makes
for
me want
us,
to throw up.
Yeah.
yeah, it's awful. But that's what's like being a lady. But I think for us, yes, it's like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Like we don't even realize, but at the same time, I think there's a point in it where we're like, we have to keep this going for evidence. Or
Or
like,
keep
Mhm.
rolling so that things don't get worse.
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. And then that's when it kind of goes against us when Ray realizes that he's being filmed and he takes power over it and takes it. That's like we don't have it anymore. And it's more just a fucked up little piece of
Home movie.
movie. Yeah, it's a whole movie that he can keep. So
Yeah. And
cameras
it
are
was I think it was important to us. We talked a lot when we were writing about, you know, the found footage trope of why are these people still recording, and making sure that we didn't get to that point where as an audience member you're saying like, this just doesn't make any sense, you know, which is why we made the choices in the film that we did to make sure that that doesn't happen. Not everyone has enjoyed it. Some of the more diehard found footage fans are not a fan of, you know, some of those choices, but we didn't want it to feel unrealistic, so we kind of take it up until that point and then switch over so that that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and honestly, like I think a lot of movies do that really well. This included, you know, you have like Leslie or the Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. I thought did a
Hmm.
really good job of that. And I think what you guys are talking about is not forcing it, you know, like not just being like you're saying, like it's not even necessarily a continuity issue. It's like now you're sitting here instead of progressing the story, you're progressing the camera, and the camera is not the main character. The person behind it is the entire time. And
Yeah.
I'm a person that doesn't like the Blair Witch Project, so
Yeah, you
I've
know, I mean, it's been interesting, you know, different people have different reactions to it. And there's people out there who, myself included, enjoy the traditional narrative portions of the film
yeah.
more than the found footage. So everyone is entitled to their opinion, and you know, for just about any movie, different parts are going to work better for different people, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like it all felt really clean to me, you know,
Cool.
as far as like watching this film. And again, like I appreciate transitions like that. But to what you're talking about, Sierra, and I really would like to say my favorite character in this was Candy, because I felt like she had the big, and it's, don't flatter yourself, Sierra. It's not just because you're here. uh well, but it really was like I felt like she was such a dynamic character for what we're about to, you know, talk about a little bit happening to her, and something that I think that you guys as filmmakers handled really well. And I bring this up a lot, where it's so important, like you can have the depravity and the grossness and like the shit that makes your skin crawl, and you can do that with respect to the audience and the actors and actresses in any given story. And I think with what we're going to talk about here in a second, that was really part of it. But I'd like to talk about why I really liked it, or why I really liked Candy as a character. And then I'd love to hear kind of the process that you guys had, because obviously, Sarah, I'm sure you had a lot of input on this character as well. And Paul, I know this is a really female forward movie, which is really cool. You know, so there's like a really cool mega team that's happening between you guys for hunting for the hag. But with Candy specifically, she reminded me a lot of myself, where it's like,
I love that.
uh, I I
Are
can't
you a
help that.
stripper, John?
I, I don't make a lot, but
It's fair.
it's the trying that counts, right?
Doing
Right.
anything else.
Yeah, exactly. It's for my self-esteem, not theirs, first of all. But what I really loved about Candy was, you know, she's there to party, you know, have a couple beers, hang out with friends, do something fun, you know, and like hang out. But you could feel that she kind of has everyone's back the entire time. Like she really is everyone's friend. And I could kind of feel that way, especially between her and Tara. Because even like after the whole like faking of the hag, or whatever you want to call that scene, I could feel her just be like, "No, this is kind of not cool, guys. Like, I'll help you guys get the footage." Because I think in her heart, it was like she might actually still want it later, and I don't want to like not have that for her at the end of the day.
Hmm.
Like, I always felt like that was on her agenda, and then at towards the end, well, not towards the end, but when we move from the tree and the crazy rednecks like wind up holding them up in this Airbnb, there's a scene, like I said, you guys were very respectful to Sierra and respectful to the audience as well, because I know myself personally don't really want to watch shit that some
Yeah.
movies try to pull off and stuff like that. And uh but watching her, like it felt like one of those things where she in the back of her head, like, yes, she is processing all of this awful shit that's happening in front of her and to her right now, but she's also manipulating the situation so that she can kind of take her power back when she has the opportunity to, and she fucking does. And I'm like sitting on my couch like, go bitch, go. Like it was awesome. So I think there was such a well developed character throughout this story, whereas like I felt like Tara is like, you know, the mission statement of the story, you know, and it felt really cool to have another supporting character that was so dynamic to the side of that. But I'd love to hear kind of y'all's inception for this character.
Yeah. Well, Paul came to me with the idea of the three characters. And at that point, it was just kind of bare bones. Tara's the lead, Candy's kind of like the fun, just there to have a good time. Beth's like the nerdy diehard for, all these
You
legends.
were trying to figure out who you wanted to play.
Yeah, and Paul was like, hey, you can pick who you want to be before we start writing. And he thought I would choose Tara because it's the main character, like, no. But I just had like a pull towards Candy from the start because I feel like there's a lot in Candy in the character that like I wrote myself into that character. So I was like, nah, I kind of want to play Candy. And he was like, all right, I can see that. So we agreed upon that. And then I started writing the script with Paul. So it was really cool being able to know which character I was going to be playing and be able to naturally put in moments that I know I could like pull off just based on my own self and personality. And what I really appreciate about Paul is he is very respectful about wanting to make sure that the female experience is presented accurately and that it doesn't come off as mansplained to people, because women can tell when they're watching a movie. You can tell 100% when a man's writing what girls are supposed to be saying in private to each other. They don't know because they're never there. So they'd like to think about it, right? They'd like to think they'd be saying these things or practicing kissing and all this kind of stuff, but that's for the
Can confirm.
that's for the male experience. It isn't about the females at that point. So what I appreciate about Paul is he was very honest about being like, yeah, I don't know, I'm a guy. Like, I'd like to think I know. I respect women and all these things, but I want you to help take the lead with forming this dynamic and making it feel natural to female experience. So that was really great. He also let me obviously write the hard scene that you're talking about. And yeah, I think with Candy's character being a stripper, like I feel like you have to be able to play a role in front of men and know how to, like you said, manipulate your way out of the situation safely to be able to get out of harm's way, because I'm sure strippers have to deal with this all the time at clubs. You have to go to a back room with someone who is not a good person, and you have to figure out how to get out of there without being physically harmed. And that's also another universal female experience. You don't have to be a stripper to just feel that. It's walking down the street and a guy coming up to you and asking for your number, you politely declining, and him getting angry at you. And now you have to worry about not angering him more because you don't want to be attacked or assaulted. So that, it doesn't matter if you're a stripper or whatever, like every female has to figure out a way how to protect herself. And sometimes you have to just play along and play the character that the man thinks you are. So that's what kind of drove that entire interaction and experience in the back room. Obviously, Paul played what was your character's name again? Danny?
Danny.
Yeah, Danny. Paul played Danny. Side note, kind of funny that when we were writing it, I didn't really like realize he was playing Danny, and like because we were
Because I made the mistake of not telling you.
not on purpose.
Right.
You had thought of someone else for the role, and it
Yeah.
ended up falling through. And then you were like, "Well, I could just do it," and we just didn't have that conversation. So
Right.
I'm writing this, and then at one point, Paul's like, oh, you do realize we have to do this scene together, and I'm like writing these really disgusting lines that he's gonna have to say to me, very creepy. And
Not fun.
I was worried about it, that we were gonna laugh or not be able to like focus or something, but we had no problems with that. I think we were both really locked in, and I think having you do it made it feel a little bit more safe and comfortable because you are my
Mhm.
friend, and like I know that's not you. But Candy's a little bit more feisty with him because she knows that she could fucking take Danny. Like Danny's kind of like the, like she could probably like put you in a chokehold if she needed to, but you know,
Those are fighting words. Uh,
No, it's true.
yeah. But Ray's the leader. He is
mhm.
the mastermind behind it all. He has this power and manipulation and dynamic that scares, I think, everybody, even his friends.
Mhm.
So when he comes in with a gun, like, and a knife, that's when she's like, I can't get feisty with this guy. I have to
Yeah.
play along. I have to think about this more safely because he can just slit my throat at any second.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a lot. I think everybody did a really good job. It was the very last scene we filmed for the entire movie. Like I had to hop on a plane after that. And I think we were all so exhausted and so like there was no room to be like funny or to joke around or oh this is so funny and awkward. I think being a little bit drained allowed us to like really lock into the horribleness of the scene, and it worked out in our favor, I think. Um so yeah, that was kind of the whole experience. I don't know if you want to add your point of view, Paul, but I
Nope.
know.
That's not paranormal, and it's like Sierra was saying, like that's shit that people actually deal with, like
Yeah.
way more often than they should.
And the handful of screenings that we've done in theaters, it is a very strange experience to feel the vibe change in the theater, and it really starts with the stuff with Alyssa, where everybody's kind of laughing and having a really
Mhm.
good time up until a certain point, and then there's been times where it has just been crickets in the theater, and as a writer and as a director, you kind of want to run out for the next half hour and go get something to drink, because it gets pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah, it does.
Well,
Yeah.
oh, go
Oh,
ahead,
sorry.
Sierra. No.
No, but the most uncomfortable screening by far was when we did the Los Angeles one, and that's like when all my people came, and my dad and my best friend's dad sat right in front of me for the movie, and I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like,
Yeah,
and I literally saw them like tense, and I just wanted to like whisper to them, like, hey, you're not gonna see, like, it's okay.
right.
Just get through it. Like, it's fine. Like, but yeah,
Yeah.
but they were fine. They were good.
So with that, it's one of those things to me as well that like I bet that was really hard for you guys to shoot, but it's really because for the average viewer like myself, like I didn't know any of you before today, and I had no idea what to expect walking into watching this movie. So I think for the audience, it's one of those things like, is it gonna go there? Like, and it's one of those things that like, that's that balance though, is like the fact that you're already feeling that is all that you had to do. And I think that scene accomplished that really well without being like, I spit on your grave or something fucking gross or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but again, bravo on all of that. We can get past the
Yeah, thank you.
grossness. Yeah. I could tell Paul was like, I really didn't like shooting that scene. And I will say, you were actually my favorite out of the rednecks.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. There was just something about the beard in the background and
I
like
mean, it was fun to sort of like be the character for the time that I was doing it. You should have
mhm,
seen Sierra when she walked into the house the first time, because the first couple days of shooting when I was just directing and I didn't have any scenes as that character yet, I look like, how I look right now. But then the day that I had my first scene in the movie, I got up, hour early and went into the bathroom and just kind of like made that up,
Mhm.
kind of on the spot, gelled my hair back, shaved part of my face, and the look on I mean, she literally would not come near me when she first saw me. So
I don't remember this at all, but you say this every time.
it's true. You blacked out. You were so petrified of me that you blacked out. But so it's fun to do stuff like that. It's true that we had somebody else in mind, and he basically said, "I that's not the type of character that I wanted to play." And at that point,
So
we
bad.
were under a time crunch, and we were trying to spend as little money as possible since we were gearing up to shoot. So I said, "Yeah, I'm going to do it, and we'll see what happens." And well, you got what you got.
Paul did a great job.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank
Um,
you.
so one of my favorite action shots that you guys have in the film, and this is the part where I don't want to start giving spoilers away, but there's
Mhm.
the scene where uh uh Candy cocks the gun and then the camera pans up and like I could almost like feel her say motherfucker like as they're about to go back out. Like what kind of gun do you think that Candy carries typically? Like is it like a stripper boot Derringer kind of thing? Or is it
Probably have
like
like a snub, like little snub revolver in her purse or something. But I think she's the kind of girl who grew up with a dad who like took her out shooting all the time. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
say because you pulled that
She
shit
knew
out
what
like
she
a cop.
yeah.
Yeah, you get the impression that obviously she grew up in the area where they are in the film, and it's almost like there's this thing where she keeps getting pulled back into this world that she wanted to get away from.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the unfortunate arc with her character, is that she ends up where she started, and kind of as kind of a tragic character.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why I had a real one of the Wake Forest creative writing professors I was talking to the other day about this, and it's about the concept of what a tragedy is and the difference between that and when bad shit just happens to somebody. And I think that's again why I kind of jive with Candy so much as a character. And I think everything that I said earlier kind of revolves around that same idea, is like she always kind of thinks that she's doing the right thing, but not like in an arrogant way. She just genuinely thinks that she's helping everybody. For the most part, she is, you know.
Hmm.
Um, my last question that I have for you guys is, Paul, when you were setting up the Airbnb or the like cast house and such, did you know that it was haunted?
No, no. In fact, I don't think that I had a whole lot to do with that. Our executive producer, Seth Kromek, had a lot to do with that. And, we were trying to find a house in the town where the movie was being filmed. We couldn't find anything because there was a big convention in town for something else. And so the house where everyone stayed was actually like 20-25 minutes away from where we were filming. So it was kind of a last minute thing. And I didn't spend a whole lot of time there. I actually stayed at the Hag House, and then the girls and some of the other crew members and whatnot would go there and spend the night, and they had to deal with any potential ghosts that were lurking around.
Oh, it's 100% haunted. I didn't have necessarily like an experience. It just the vibe was off all the time.
Was there a Ouija board in the basement?
No Ouija board, just some like, why do people do this? Like, oh, I have a creepy house with a creepy basement. Let me put one chair in a corner in the back room. There's like nothing else. Like, who's doing that? I feel like everybody with a creepy basement just like it's a part of the experience or something.
It's
Or
But
an
on
attic?
purpose.
Or just something,
Yeah,
there's something that makes you said, why was they just sitting there?
right.
yeah, yeah. And then like, yeah, with addicts, it's like, yeah, let's just put some dolls up here. Like, why is everybody gotta do that? Stop.
Well, before we get off here, I really would like to ask you guys, I know Ghost Girls episode 1 is available on Tubi, as you were saying, which is a series. So obviously we'll get more of that. I'm excited to go check that out. Hunting for the Hag available on Amazon as well as Fandango at home.
Yeah, Fandango at home, and then there's also several cable platforms. So if you're someone who has cable at home, it's on a lot of cable on demand platforms like Xfinity and Spectrum and stuff like that. And eventually, in a handful of months here, it'll be hitting Tubi and Plex and stuff like that as well. If you're someone who's waiting for free stuff, that's okay too. You can wait until it hits the ad-based platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, is there anything else that we should be on the lookout from this dynamic duo?
Yeah, definitely. Sierra and I are we're writing something right now. Can't give too much away just yet because it's in the very early stages, but we've been having a really good time writing it. I would actually say that, like, our collaboration has progressed a lot more, and like we Sierra is sort of coming up with a lot more sort of like foundation ideas of what this next movie is going to be, which is really exciting because I feel like it's our process, since we have a lot more time than we did with Hag, has been a lot more organic. And so it's been really fun sort of like working on this new film and going through the process again together.
Yeah, definitely. I do feel like it's fun being able to create the concept with you this time, like
Hmm.
from ground zero, because it's just like a different process trying to lay out the structure.
Yeah,
And I'm enjoying it so far. Like trying to figure out your own puzzle pieces to the plot is very
right.
so yeah, definitely follow us on Instagram because when we do have updates on it, we will put it there. So
And Ghost
Absolutely.
Girls, like you said, John, Ghost Girls, we have two new episodes coming out, and I'm putting the finishing touches on those right now, and we're going to hope to have those up fairly soon. No timetable just yet. Trying to figure out exactly what we're doing with it, but you can stay tuned for that as well.
Absolutely. And make sure you guys are following these beautiful people on Instagram. You can see that right down in the left-hand corner. And make sure you check out Haunting Jesus. Now I'm thinking about Ghost Girls.
People
Hunting
say
for
that
the
all the time.
Hag. Haunting of the Hag.
maybe that's the sequel. Yeah.
No, I'm
There
trying
you
to
go.
get to hunting for the foreskin is really what I is really what I want to
Haunting
get to.
of the foreskin.
Oh boy.
Well, Paul, Sierra, thank you guys for joining us so much on this week. It's been so much fun and great job. You guys have a lot to be proud of. And thank you, everybody else, for joining us. Where it creaks, it cracks, and we laugh at the creatures that go bump in the night. Good night.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.